What does Erin O'Toole need to break through, and does he have a shot at beating Justin Trudeau whenever an election comes? Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist with the Toronto Sun, and for the last little while, Erin O'Toole's been getting some pretty favorable reviews in his job as leader of Her Majesty's official opposition. He's been asking good questions in the House of Commons. He has not taken bait when Liberals have tried to set up the Conservatives to look foolish or look bad in some way. So does he have a shot? What does he have to do to make it through? Well, I've got my own ideas, but our next guest would have some ideas as well. Jeff Ballingall is the founder of Mobilize Media. You may have heard of some of his projects, such as Ontario Proud, Canada Proud, and you worked on the Erin O'Toole campaign, but you're not working with them now. Jeff, how would you rate how Erin O'Toole's been doing so far?
I think he's doing a very good job considering the political climate we're in. Being an opposition leader is always difficult. It's difficult to make press. It's difficult to be relevant, and especially now during COVID, that's even harder. I mean, he can't tour the country. People are very fixated on what the government's doing every day in response to COVID. The economy is obviously in tatters. There's a million other different challenges. And so to get on people's radar, to be relevant in people's lives is definitely a challenge. That said, I think the O'Toole team is really setting themselves up for success. They're talking about conservatism in a different way. We're addressing, they're really prioritizing workers, private sector unions. They're talking about the vaccine rollout, which I think we're going to see in the next 6 months really come up to the forefront of political dialogue. And I think that, they're not falling into liberal traps, as you said. They're not talking about social issues. And Erin's, I'm trying to think, Erin's just really going to reflect, I think, what a modern Canada looks like in terms of this team he's building, in terms of how he speaks, and who he's speaking to. So, I give them a lot of credit for what they're doing, given the political climate we're in is very, very challenging.
Now, I do want to point out that it's not surprising that someone worked on his campaign has, generally thinks he's doing well. But I want to ask you about some of the strategies, because I know you likely were talking about these during the campaign. And you mentioned going after private sector union workers. When I talked about that, and I've talked about it at both the Ontario level, where Doug Ford's doing the same thing. I've talked about it at the federal level, and some people just don't like this idea. There was a column by Chris Elliott, National Post, saying the true blue Erin O'Toole is going purple. If you are bringing on side private sector union workers, is that making a party less conservative? I don't think so. I think it's a natural conservative constituency. They're people that already are inclined to vote for you. It's getting them to say, look, the NDP doesn't look after what you want out of life.
Certainly. I think if you take a lunch bucket to work, or you wear jeans to work, or if you shower after work, or any of those signs that you do physical labor, or you work a blue collar job, those should be a natural constituency for conservatives. I think the way the left has completely abandoned workers, the legal blockades is a very good example. The NDP should have been on side of the workers who were affected by these legal blockades, but it was much more politically correct, much more salient for the left to embrace, people breaking the law and holding up the economy. We've seen the same thing with the left in terms of what they've done in the resource sector in West. They're much more likely to side with Hollywood celebrities than, the worker in Fort McMurray. So I think it's a massive opportunity for conservatives to show that, if we're on the side of workers, and the rich like Justin Trudeau and him and his friends, they're doing really well with their corruption and how they're rigging the system. And the NDP, well, they're out to lunch. They've completely abandoned workers and their labor ideals. And conservatives are preaching common sense. They're not the party of big business. They're the party of small business and blue collar workers. And I think that is the path to victory for conservatives.
So let's talk a little bit about dealing with media. I keep being asked, how on earth can you claim that the media is left-wing? And I say, well, I've worked in newsrooms across the country in print, radio, and television. Well, yeah, but post-media, national editorials always endorse conservatives. So what? Most journalists are left. You've still got to work with them in traditional media. What do you think is the balance for someone like Erin O'Toole in dealing with traditional media? Because I think ignoring traditional media is foolish, but also using new media, which is something that, I mean, you've got a company built on that. You've got these the most popular Facebook political pages in the country. So I know your bias is towards new media, digital, but do you agree with me that there's got to be a balance, that you've got to be able to do and handle both?
Certainly. I think, listen, I'm obviously biased for new media. I think I'd rather if I was advising a political campaign right now, I'd say there's lots of different new media that you can go to try to reach more people. That said, you still got to use old media, and you got to figure out ways to work with them. And I think part of that is the tone. I don't think conservatives should apologize and grovel when dealing with old media. I think they should be forceful, but do it with a smile on their face, not be apologetic. But understand that a lot of these journalists are good people, and they're trying to do their jobs. Some of them might be slightly biased, but if you're confident and you're reasonable, and you don't seem too abrasive, then I think you can get far in life, far ahead, far with them.
You know what? When Stephen Harper first came in, there were a lot of, and this is common for every government, that when the party's been out of power for a while, they don't let a lot of cabinet ministers speak to the media because, well, they don't have experience doing it, not in a government type setting. But Harper allowed a couple of them who had been at Queen's Park, people like Jim Flaherty, John Baird, Tony Clement. They could go out and speak. And you're right, they always came out. Jim Flaherty could take a beating in a scrum, but he just stood there and smiled and argued his position. And that earned him a lot of respect. The reporters may lean left, but you're right, they're not evil people. They, just because you lean one way or the other, I hate this idea that it makes you evil, but you can win respect from people just by smiling and explaining where you stand.
Agreed. I think anger is a very bad look for conservatives. We should be happier. We should be smiling, and just be reasonable. It's the same way. It's the same tone. We all have people that don't agree with us socially. I mean, I have lots of left-wing friends, and if we're having a beer with them, I'm not yelling at them to agree with me. I'm telling them, hey, this is my side of the story. This is my views, and I understand that you have yours, but I'm sure we can find some sort of conclusion, or at least agree to disagree in a reasonable manner. So that's, I think, the tone you got to bring, and I think that's what Erin understands. I think Erin, he truly does like people, and I think he. But he's confident, and he's principled, and he's going to push back when needed, and he's going to listen when needed, and he's going to help explain his story in a very reasonable, optimistic manner. All
right. Jeff Ballingall is the founder of Mobilize Media and the guy behind Ontario Proud, Canada Proud. Like his Facebook pages, and like this page as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Drop a comment below. Let us know what you think about how Erin O'Toole is doing. Jeff, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.